The blizzard screamed across the barren landscape of planet Glacius Prime like an angry beast. Calyx Brennan gripped the controls of his Phelan shuttle, sweat dripping down his temples, despite the freezing temperatures seeping through the cracked viewport. The distress beacon had led him here, promising a simple rescue mission. Instead, his vessel had been struck by an unexpected electromagnetic storm, sending him spiraling toward the unforgiving surface below. The impact was brutal. Metal shrieked against ice as the shuttle carved a jagged path through the snow before finally grinding to a halt. Calyx sat motionless for a moment, his breath coming in ragged gasps, the taste of copper on his tongue. Blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow, but he was alive. That was something. He forced himself to move, checking his survival gear with practiced efficiency. The emergency kit was intact, his thermal suit functional, and his communicator damaged beyond repair. Perfect. He was stranded on a frozen wasteland with no way to call for help. The irony of the rescue pilot needing rescue was not lost on him. Calyx pushed open the buckled door and stepped into the howling wind. Snow stung his face like tiny needles, and he pulled his hood tighter. The landscape stretched endlessly in every direction, a white void broken only by towering ice formations that jutted from the ground like crystalline teeth. Somewhere out here was the source of that distress signal, and if he wanted to survive, he needed to find shelter. First dot, the sun hung low on the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the snow. Calyx trudged forward, each step a battle against the wind and the knee-deep drifts. His scanner flickered weakly, picking up faint thermal readings from a cave system about half a kilometer away. It would have to do dot as he approached the entrance. Something caught his eye. Droplets of an iridescent substance dotted the snow, glowing faintly in the dim light. Not blood, not exactly, but something similar. The trail led directly into the cave. Calyx hesitated, his hand moving instinctively to the plasma pistol at his hip. Whatever had left that trail was injured and possibly dangerous. But the cold was deadly, and the cave offered protection. He had no choice. The interior was darker than he expected, his flashlight beam cutting through the shadows like a blade. The temperature rose slightly as he ventured deeper, the wind's roar fading to a distant whisper. The glowing droplets continued, leading him through a narrow passage that opened into a larger chamber. That was where he found her. She was tiny, barely reaching his waist, even if she had been standing. Her body was curled against the far wall, trembling violently. At first, Calyx thought she might be a child, but as he drew closer, he realized she was something far more extraordinary. Her skin shimmered with a soft lavender hue, marked with intricate silver patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. Delicate features, almost doll-like in their perfection, were framed by hair that flowed like liquid starlight, shifting between white and pale blue. But it was her wings that made him stop breathing. Translucent and gossamer thin, they spread partially behind her, torn and damaged, the edges flickering with that same iridescent glow he had followed through the snow. She was an alien, unlike anything he had ever encountered in his years of space travel. Her eyes fluttered open as he approached, and Calyx found himself staring into pools of deep violet that held both fear and desperate hope. She tried to speak, her voice barely a whisper, the words forming in a language he could not understand. But her meaning was clear. She was hurt, terrified, and running out of time. Calyx dropped to his knees beside her, his medical training overriding his shock. He could see the wounds now, deep gashes along her side and shoulder, the same glowing substance seeping from them. Her breathing was shallow, her small body racked with shivers that had nothing to do with the cold. Without thinking, he pulled out his medical kit and began working. His hands moved with practiced precision, cleaning the wounds as gently as possible. She flinched at his touch, but did not pull away, her violet eyes locked on his face with an intensity that made his heart race. He applied synthetic skin patches, knowing they were designed for humans, but hoping they would at least stop the bleeding dot as he worked. She reached out with one delicate hand, her fingers barely brushing against his wrist. The touch was electric, a jolt of warmth that spread through his entire body. Her eyes widened, and she gasped softly, pulling her hand back as if burned. But the fear in her gaze had shifted to something else, something Calyx could not quite name. He finished bandaging her wounds and sat back, exhausted. The tiny alien girl watched him, her breathing steadier now, the trembling beginning to ease. She spoke again, her voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, still incomprehensible, but somehow soothing. When he shook his head apologetically, she seemed to understand. Instead, she pointed to herself and said a single word that needed no translation. Seraphine. Calyx nodded, placing a hand over his own chest. Calyx. The faintest smile touched her lips, transforming her delicate features. She repeated his name, her pronunciation soft and musical, turning the simple syllables into something beautiful. Despite everything, despite the danger and the uncertainty, Calyx felt something warm unfurl in his chest. The storm continued to rage outside, but in that moment, in the dim light of the cave with this mysterious tiny alien girl watching him with those impossibly deep eyes, Calyx Brennan realized his life had just changed in ways he could not yet begin to understand. The rescue pilot had found someone to save. But perhaps, in the frozen heart of this desolate world, he had also found something he had not even known he was searching for. The night passed slowly in the cave. The fire Calyx had managed to build casting dancing shadows on the ice-covered walls. Seraphine had finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, her tiny form curled close to the warmth. Calyx kept watch, his mind racing with questions he had no answers for. Who was she? What was she doing alone on this frozen planet? And why did touching her feel like completing a circuit he had not known was broken? When dawn's pale light began filtering through the cave entrance, Seraphine stirred. Her wings fluttered weakly, sending tiny sparkles of light cascading around her like falling stars. She sat up slowly, wincing as the movement pulled at her wounds, and turned those remarkable violet eyes toward Calyx. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Seraphine raised one delicate hand and pressed her fingertips against her own temple. She closed her eyes, concentrating, and suddenly Calyx felt a strange pressure building in his mind, not painful, but distinctly present. Before he could react, words began forming in his thoughts, clear and unmistakable. Can you understand me now? Her voice echoed inside his head, soft and melodic. Calyx jerked back in surprise. What did you just do? Seraphine's expression turned apologetic, though a small smile played at her lips. Telepathic bridge. My people can share language through touch and thought. I apologize for the intrusion, but we need to communicate properly. Your people, Calyx repeated, his heart still hammering from the shock. Where are they? Why are you here alone? The light in Seraphine's eyes dimmed. She wrapped her arms around herself, her wings folding protectively around her small frame. Gone. My scout ship was attacked by raiders 3 cycles ago. I managed to escape in a pod, but it crashed here. I have been hiding, trying to heal, but the wounds were too severe. She looked up at him, gratitude shining in her gaze. You saved my life, Calyx Brennan. I did what anyone would do, he said quietly, though he knew that was not entirely true. Most people would have run from an unknown alien, not stopped to help. Seraphine shook her head, her starlight hair swaying with the movement. No, you risked yourself for a stranger, for someone not even of your world. That is the mark of a true heart. She hesitated, then continued, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. Among my people, when someone saves your life at great personal cost, a bond is formed. A soul bond. Calyx felt his stomach tighten. What kind of bond? Seraphine's cheeks flushed a deeper lavender. The kind that connects two beings across space and time. When you touched me, when you gave of yourself to heal me, the bond awakened. I felt it the moment your skin met mine. She looked away, her voice trembling. I know you do not understand our ways. I know this must seem strange and frightening, but I cannot deny what I felt. You are my destined one, Calyx. My heart recognized yours. The cave suddenly felt too small, too warm despite the cold outside. Calyx stood abruptly, pacing to the entrance. This was impossible. He had come here on a rescue mission, not to become entangled in some alien bonding ritual. He barely knew this tiny alien girl, no matter how beautiful she was, or how his heart had raced when she smiled. Seraphine, he began, then stopped. What could he say? That he had felt something too when they touched? That even now, looking at her small, wounded form, he felt an inexplicable urge to protect her, to keep her safe. That would only make things more complicated. She rose on unsteady legs, her wings drooping. You do not have to accept the bond, she said quietly, though pain laced every word. Among my people, it is honored and celebrated, but I know humans value choice above destiny. I will not force this upon you. She took a shaky breath. Once my wounds heal enough, I will leave. You can return to your life, and I will find my way to the nearest settlement. Something twisted sharply in Calyx's chest at the thought of her leaving, of never seeing her again. It was ridiculous. He had known her for less than a day. Yet the idea of her walking out of this cave and disappearing into the frozen wasteland made him feel hollow. He turned back to face her. You cannot travel in your condition. Those wounds need time to heal properly. Then I will wait, Seraphine replied, her voice steady despite the shimmer of tears in her violet eyes. But I will not burden you with unwanted bonds or obligations. The proud tilt of her chin, the way she stood despite her obvious pain and exhaustion, struck something deep within Calyx. She was so small, so fragile-looking, yet there was a core of pure strength inside her. She had survived a crash, survived days alone in hostile territory, and now she was offering to walk away from what she believed was her destiny, all to spare him discomfort. Calyx crossed the cave in 3 strides and knelt before her, bringing himself to eye level. Up close, he could see every delicate silver pattern on her skin, could see the flecks of lighter purple in her eyes. What does this bond mean? He asked. Explain it to me. Hope flickered across her features. It means our souls are compatible, that we are meant to walk through life together. It does not control your will or force emotions. It simply means that of all the beings in the universe, you and I fit together perfectly. Your strengths complement my weaknesses, and mine complement yours. We would be stronger together than apart. And if I choose not to accept it, Seraphine's expression turned solemn. Then nothing happens. A bond fades, and we go our separate ways. I will feel the loss of what might have been, but I will survive. My people believe in honoring choice above all else. Calyx studied her face, searching for any sign of deception or manipulation. He found none, only raw honesty and a vulnerability that made his heart ache. He thought about his life before this moment, the endless cycle of missions and loneliness, the empty feeling that had followed him through the stars. He thought about how, when he had touched her, that emptiness had vanished, replaced by a sense of rightness he had never experienced before. I need time, he finally said. This is all happening too fast. Seraphine nodded, relief washing over her features. Time I can give you. We are stranded here together anyway. A small smile curved her lips. Perhaps you will learn that I am not so terrible to be bonded with. Despite everything, Calyx found himself smiling back. Perhaps I will. 3 days passed in the cave, 3 days that changed everything Calyx thought he knew about himself. Seraphine proved to be unlike anyone he had ever met. Her tiny stature belied a sharp intelligence and a gentle humor that had him laughing despite their dire circumstances. She told him stories of her people, the Luminae, beings of light and thought who traveled the stars seeking knowledge and connection. In turn, Calyx shared his own history, the years spent drifting from mission to mission, never quite finding a place to call home. Seraphine listened with rapt attention, her violet eyes never leaving his face, as if every word he spoke was precious. The bond between them grew naturally, without force or pressure. Calyx found himself drawn to her in ways he could not explain, wanting to hear her laugh, to see her eyes light up when he brought her food he had foraged from the cave's surprising ecosystem of frost fungi. When her wounds caused her pain, he felt it echo in his own chest, a phantom ache that only eased when she was comfortable. On the 4th morning, Seraphine's wounds had healed enough for her wings to fully extend. She stood in the center of the cave, the appendages spread wide, and Calyx's breath caught. They were magnificent, each one a masterpiece of nature, glowing with soft light that reflected off the ice walls and filled the space with prismatic colors. Beautiful, he whispered. Seraphine turned to him, her cheeks flushing. Among my people, showing one's wings is intimate, reserved for family and bonded pairs. I wanted you to see them, truly see them. Calyx moved closer, unable to resist. May I touch them? She nodded, her breath hitching slightly as his fingers ghosted along the delicate membrane. The texture was impossibly soft, like silk woven from moonlight. Seraphine shivered, not from cold, but from something else entirely, and Calyx felt an answering warmth spread through his body. Calyx, she breathed, turning to face him. They were so close now, her head barely reaching his chest. She had, too, tilt her face up to meet his eyes, and in that moment, Calyx saw everything he had been fighting against, everything he had been too afraid to acknowledge. He was falling in love with this tiny alien girl, this being from another world who had crashed into his life and turned it upside down. The bond, he said hoarsely. What happens if I accept it? Seraphine's eyes widened, hope and joy blazing in their depths. We join our life forces, become partners in the truest sense. Where I go, you may follow. Where you go, I may follow. Distance cannot break us, and time cannot dim what we share. We become two halves of one whole. And if we are separated, we will always find our way back to each other. The bond ensures it. She reached up, her small hand cupping his cheek. But Calyx, you must be certain. This is forever. My people live for centuries, and the bond will extend your life to match mine. You will be choosing an entire future, not just a moment. Centuries. An entire lifetime, maybe more, with this extraordinary being. The thought should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like coming home. Calyx covered her hand with his own. Teach me what I need to do. Joy transformed Seraphine's face, making her luminous. Hold both my hands. Open your heart and your mind. The bond will do the rest. He took her tiny hands in his, feeling the delicate bones, the warmth of her skin. Seraphine closed her eyes, and light began building between them, soft and golden, spreading from where they touched. It flowed up their arms, wrapping around them both like gentle ribbons. Calyx gasped as he felt Seraphine's presence flood into his mind, not invasive but welcoming, like opening a door he had not known existed. He felt her emotions, her fierce love and unwavering certainty, her joy at this moment and her wonder at him. And beneath it all, he felt her soul, bright and pure and perfectly aligned with his own. The light intensified, surrounding them completely, and then it rushed inward, sinking beneath their skin and settling deep in their chests. When it faded, something fundamental had changed. Calyx could feel Seraphine inside him, a constant warm presence that would never leave. "My mate," Seraphine whispered, tears streaming down her face. "My beloved Calyx." He pulled her into his arms, mindful of her sighs and her still healing wounds, and held her close. "My Seraphine," he murmured against her starlight hair. "My heart." They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other and the newness of their bond. When they finally pulled apart, Seraphine was smiling through her tears. "We must leave soon," she said. "My people will come searching for me, and your people will be looking for you." "Together," Calyx said firmly. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Seraphine nodded. "Together, always." As they began preparing to leave the cave that had sheltered them, that had been the birthplace of their love, Calyx marveled at how his life had changed. He had crashed on a frozen planet expecting death, and instead he had found life, love, and a future he had never dared to dream of. The rescue pilot had needed no rescue after all. He had needed exactly what he found: a tiny alien girl with violet eyes and wings of light, who had looked at him and seen not just a man, but her destiny. And Calyx, who had spent so long drifting through the stars alone, had finally found his home in the most unexpected place. Not in a location, but in a person. In Seraphine, his bonded mate, his love beyond worlds, his forever written in the stars themselves. 6 months had passed since Calyx and Seraphine had walked out of that frozen cave together, hand in hand, their bond shining bright between them. The rescue ships had come within days, both human and Lumine vessels converging. On Glacius Prime, what could have been a tense first contact situation had instead become a mere celebration when both crews realized what had happened. Calyx stood on the observation deck of the orbital station that now served as a hub between Earth and the Lumine homeworld, watching ships come and go against the backdrop of endless stars. He felt Seraphine approach before he heard her, their bond always alerting him to her presence, a warm pulse in his chest that never failed to make him smile. "There you are," she said softly, slipping under his arm with practiced ease. Even after all this time, her tiny stature still amazed him, as did the fact that she fit so perfectly against his side. "Just thinking," Calyx replied, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. Her hair still reminded him of liquid starlight, shimmering between white and pale blue in the station's lights. "About what?" Seraphine tilted her face up to look at him, those violet eyes full of curiosity and love. "About how different my life is now. 6 months ago, I was alone, drifting from mission to mission with no real purpose. Now I have you. I have a family with your people. I have friends among both our worlds." He tightened his arm around her. "I have everything I never knew I needed." Seraphine's wings, now fully healed and more beautiful than ever, fluttered slightly with her emotions. "And I have you, my brave rescuer who became so much more." She placed her small hand over his heart. "Do you feel it? How our bond has grown stronger." Calyx did feel it. The connection between them had deepened with each passing day, becoming as natural as breathing. He could sense her emotions, her thoughts when she chose to share them, and the constant reassurance that she was near and safe. In return, she felt the same from him. "The Council approved our proposal," Seraphine said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "The Joint Exploration Program. Humans and Lumine working together, exploring new worlds as partners." "That's incredible," Calyx breathed. It had been their dream, born from long conversations in that cave. If their two species could come together through love, why not through cooperation and shared discovery? "And," Seraphine continued, her smile growing mischievous, "they want us to lead the first mission. A human pilot and a Lumine navigator, bonded mates exploring the unknown together. They said, "We are the perfect symbol of what our peoples can accomplish united." Calyx laughed, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around carefully. Her delighted laughter filled the observation deck, a sound that never failed to make his heart soar. When he set her down, he cupped her delicate face in his hands. "Are you sure you want to go back out there? Into danger and uncertainty?" Seraphine placed her hands over his, her expression fierce despite her tiny size. "Calyx, my love, my mate, my heart. Danger and uncertainty brought us together. Why should I fear them now when I have you by my side?" Her eyes softened. "Besides, wherever you go, I go. That is what the bond means. That is what love means." "Then we will explore the stars together," Calyx said, leaning down to press his forehead against hers in the lumine gesture of devotion. "We will discover new worlds, meet new peoples. And we will do it as one." "As one," Seraphine echoed, her wings spreading slightly, catching the light and painting rainbow patterns across the walls. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the cosmos stretched out before them, Calyx thought about the impossible chain of events that had led to this moment. A distress signal, a crash landing, a wounded tiny alien girl in a frozen cave. One choice to help instead of flee. One choice to open his heart instead of close it. And now, an entire future waiting to be explored. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "Beyond measure, beyond reason, beyond worlds." Seraphine's response came through their bond and her words simultaneously, doubling the impact. "And I love you, my destined one. From the moment you touched me, I knew. My soul recognized yours, and it will recognize you in every lifetime, across every star, until the universe itself grows cold and dark." The observation deck's windows showed 1,000,000 stars, each one a possibility, each one a promise of adventure to come. But Calyx only had eyes for the tiny luminous being in his arms, the one who had transformed his life from empty existence into vibrant purpose. The rescue pilot had found his mission at last. Not in saving others, though he would continue to do that. Not in exploring the unknown, though adventures awaited. His true mission was simple and profound: to love Seraphine with everything he had, to walk beside her through whatever the universe threw their way, and to prove every single day that sometimes the greatest rescues are the ones where both people save each other. As their ship prepared for departure, the next morning, as they stood together on the bridge, ready to venture into the great unknown, Calyx took Seraphine's small hand in his and smiled. The stars were calling. Their future was waiting. And together, bonded mates with hearts aligned across species and worlds, they would answer. This was not an ending. It was a beginning. The beginning of a love story that would be told for generations. Of the human pilot and the tiny alien girl who proved that the strongest bonds are forged not in similarity, but in the courage to embrace difference, to choose love over fear, and to believe that sometimes the universe knows exactly what it's doing when it brings two souls together. Their forever had been written in the stars long before they met. Now, hand in hand, they would write the rest of it themselves. The end